What's up, everyone? This is Quentin Figueroa with SlayerMint.com, and in this video I would like to talk to you about how your job is not to change the world, it is to change yourself. Now, I kind of hear this more and more, it seems. Even people I listen to and respect a lot, they're kind of always talking about how, like this world, things are going bad. We need to save the world. Things are getting out of control. This is the one time in history that it like really counts now, and like everything hinges on this. Like some law might get passed, or some like political thing might happen, or even with like the environment or something. It seems like it's always like this fear-based thing where we're always on the verge of destruction. We're in like this world we're going to mess up, and this is going to be the end of it, and we really got to do something about it, right? So, religion tells us that the world is like 6,000 years old. Science tells us humans have been here like 200,000 years. And so we have like this whole span of time in the past with humans, but for whatever reason, this one current time is like the one that supposedly is the most important, and we really don't want to mess it up. And like, we don't take into account like future or past. We just think like right now, this is the one time that matters. And it's just it seems kind of like naive a bit, or it's like kind of like looking at the small picture and kind of looking at it like from a kind of a selfish way, I guess. So I kind of wanted to explore this topic because I hear it a lot, and I kind of used to think this way too. And I've kind of changed my thinking in that based off things that I've read and studied under and come across. And one book that helped kind of change that view for me was called Ask and It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks. And I wanted to read a quote from that book that's very powerful, I think, and could kind of open you up to kind of this line of thinking, or kind of to give you a broader perspective of this life here and why we're here and kind of what's going on. So let me share that quote with you, and we will take it from there. Okay, so this, like I said, is from the book Ask and It Is Given, which is a fantastic book. And the quote goes like this, quote, "You did not come to fix a broken world. As non-physical source energy, expressing through your physical experience is truly the leading edge of thought. And as you are fine-tuning your creative experience, you are taking thought beyond that which it has ever been before. As you enthusiastically made the decision to come into this physical body and create in this way, you understood, from your non-physical vantage point, that this physical world was not broken and in need of repair, and you did not come forth to fix it. You saw this physical world as a creative environment in which you and everyone else could express yourselves creatively. You did not come forth to try to get others to stop doing what they are doing and do something else. You came forth understanding the value in the contrast and the balance in the variety. Every physical being on your planet is your partner in co-creation. And if you would accept that and appreciate the diversity of beliefs and desires, all of you would have more expansive, satisfying, and fulfilling experiences." End quote. Okay, so this is I think it's a very important quote. I mean, it's kind of, I guess, in a way, deeper than like what a lot of religion talks about. Obviously, it's kind of getting into like a more reincarnational type aspect, more spiritual type thing, where it's outside of this kind of one life. But I think that's kind of the vantage point you need to view things from if you want to have the correct understanding, if that in fact is the correct reality that we live under. So it's counter to a lot of our religion and culture, because, religion, kind of a lot of them, especially Abrahamic religions, teach you this kind of your one life. This is your one shot, and they, of course, teach, like this evangelical message of saving the world and, spreading the gospel and that kind of stuff. Your culture kind of has that same type of viewpoint of like a physical survival scarcity viewpoint, which, I mean, I get it, obviously, from the physical level, makes sense, but there's also a much broader perspective, like a higher level of looking at this, that as you understand it better, it takes away kind of this fear of like the world getting destroyed, or, this being the most important part of life, and that you have to change everybody. Like when you get a higher perspective, you don't really care as much about that, because you see that it's mostly about your individual growth here. You're not here trying to change your parents or your country or your friends or anybody else, right? They're on their own individual journey and their own individual evolution, their own growth. They're expanding and they're developing themselves in whichever way they see fit, just as you are developing yourself in whichever way you see fit. So we're all on our individual journeys here. And it's about your individual growth and not about changing the world, right? The world is going to come and go, be here, whatnot. The world is kind of what it is, but it's what we take with us from this world and what we get out of it. And of course, I'm not saying not to help people and that don't like give a crap about the planet. I'm not saying that at all. Of course, helping people is good and it's important to care for the environment and these kind of things. I'm just saying, don't let it control you. Don't let it become your primary thing, or don't let it create like a fearful or a unsettling feeling in yourself. Because the most important thing is you working on yourself and you developing yourself. I mean, in another video, I talked about how we choose kind of how we interpret whatever scenario we're in, right? So we can choose whether or not we're happy or unhappy. We don't need to let external things decide that. We ourselves can decide that. And that goes along with this type of thing. It doesn't matter what the world's doing. Doesn't matter if it's messed up or not messed up. We choose our own direction and happiness despite what is going on anywhere else. We have power within ourselves at any time to live however we want, and it doesn't matter what else is going on. And we don't need to try to force ourselves or change other things that don't necessarily need to be changed. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. And now it's kind of, I guess you could say, this world is a lot like a video game where you're in this kind of life right now, in this body, playing as a character, right? Your consciousness is playing in this character, but you're not the character itself. You're not the like ego behind this character. You're the energy or the essence, the entity, the soul behind this character that's controlling it. And it's just like when you're in a video game and you're controlling a character, you don't necessarily get super attached to the character or the world that the character's in. You kind of get when you're playing a video game that you're enjoying an experience and you might be kind of getting things out of it, you know, viewing different scenarios and contrasts in certain ways, but you're not like super bent on making sure the video game never ends or that something doesn't happen in a video game. You're exploring, you're testing new things, you're being creative, right? And that is what this life is. It's like you're a video game character in this life and you're expressing yourself, you're exploring, and you're, you know, expanding your consciousness through the character and the characters that you meet. So that is kind of an interesting way to look at it. That's kind of how I tend to look at it. And I think that could be helpful in a lot of ways. Now, I mean, because if you look at this world, we have like billions of galaxies, right? This universe is huge. There's densities that we don't even know about or know how they work or don't understand. We're kind of limited to this like this three-dimensional view of things, right? But we don't understand kind of how there can be things that we don't perceive with our five senses. Like, it's so much broader than what we see, right? And just even the fact that there's billions of planets, it's like that could have life or could have different consciousnesses evolving and whatnot. To think that this is the one that matters or that this is like the one life of ours that counts, it's like just kind of, it's just very small picture. It's like looking at a painting and having the painting like right in your face to where you see like a very narrow part of it and you're like, this doesn't make sense. But if you like back up and you see the entirety, the painting, you can understand more what's going on. It's like we have this very low resolution view of things, and we try to base our understanding on that, and I think it's somewhat quite limiting. And it kind of gives us this fearful mode of like, oh, everything's bad, everything sucks, I need to fix it. That's not necessarily the right way to view it. It's like we're going to live many lives. We're going to live on and evolve in different ways, different densities, different bodies. It's like there's a lot to this. I'm not trying to get like crazy, but I mean, that's kind of what that quote was saying that I was reading, and there's a lot to that, I believe. So that is something that I think is pretty important. Now, I want to share with you a George Carlin quote where he kind of talks about the planet and how like everybody's kind of concerned with the planet. Like, we don't want to mess up this planet. Like, this planet is delicate and we need to find the balance. And it's like, I get that, and I'm not at all against not taking care of things or using things adequately, or like, within your means, and not being like excessive and that kind of stuff. I get all that. It's great. But again, I think we kind of get carried away with certain things, and there's kind of a broader way to look at this. So this is the comedian George Carlin. He had a good take on it. He says, quote, "The planet is fine. Compared to the people, the planet's doing great. Been here for 4.5 billion years. Do you ever think about the arithmetic? The planet has been here 4.5 billion years. We've been here, 100,000, maybe 200,000? And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat, that somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful little blue-green ball that's just floating around the sun. The planet has been through a lot worse than us, been through all kinds of things worse than us. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drifts, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles, hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets and asteroids and meteors, worldwide flood, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages, and we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference. The planet isn't going anywhere. We are." End quote. And that's an important quote. I find it useful because he's putting things into perspective. Like, we have this narrow view of things, like, plastic is bad, like we're polluting the environment. It's like, okay, dude, 4.5 billion years, right? Or, maybe 10 billion, whatever the world is, versus, a couple hundred years, or maybe 200,000 of all human existence. It's like, okay, I think the planet, I don't think we're going to mess it up. We might mess ourselves up or something might happen, but the planet, it seems to be okay. It's not that big of a thing. So, yeah, that's an important quote, and I like what he says about that, and it shows us that, like, it's about changing ourselves. It's like, who cares what happens to the planet? The planet is going to be here regardless. We need to just focus on ourselves. We're, like, so afraid to just focus on moving ourselves forward, and we just get caught up in so many things that are just kind of extraneous and irrelevant. So yeah, we can't change the minds of everyone, and we shouldn't want to. That's like a big thing, right? Because we come here thinking that we have the one truth, right? Like, either from our culture or religion or our government, whatever, right? So then everybody thinks we have the one truth and everybody else is wrong. So because we have the truth, we need to convince them that they're wrong and that we're right. So that's what we do, right? This is like what I've said with, like, religion, especially Abrahamic religions. This is like their main thing. It's like they have the right God. They got it right? So they have to go out and prove to everyone that everyone else is wrong, and they need to save them. They need to bring these people up. They need to uplift them. And it's like their whole mission is to change the world. Their whole mission is to change everyone to think like them. And I get it, and I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, but there's a broader way to look at it, a more wise way to look at it. It's like, yeah, you can invite people into your understanding. You can help people if you have truth or you have ideas or principles that can make their life better and help them grow better. But you can't force it on people. You can't go around trying to force people into your way of living. It's like, if you really have the truth or the good way of living, do what the actual religious teachings say and live by example. And just be that example and that beacon of light that people can see and look at and be like, I don't know what this person is doing, but they're doing something right because everything just seems to be working out for them. I'm going to see what they're doing. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to follow their example. That's what people did with Jesus, So it's like, that is kind of the important thing here. It's like not about forcing yourself on people and saying like, you're wrong, I'm right, because it's not about that. It's about our own personal journeys here. So yeah, that's the main point I wanted to get across, right? We have the ability to choose how we react to the world. It doesn't matter what's going on here. What matters is how we evolve ourselves, because when we're done with this life here, we're going to move on. And what matters more is what you get out of your life, for future lives, for future experiences. It's like, you don't want to leave this life without taking anything with you, right? We don't want to just come out of this life with what we brought in. It's like we need to expand and take in new experiences and work on ourselves that way. And if we're always concerned with like the environment, or we're concerned with changing the world or changing others, I think we're missing kind of the point and the picture. And I wanted to leave you with a really important quote, again from Esther and Jerry Hicks, and that is from the book Ask and It Is Given, and this is a very good quote, so let me leave you with this. It says, quote, "There was nothing in your plan about being here that included struggle or hardship. You did not believe that you were coming into physical form to right past wrongs, or to fix a broken world, or to evolve in the sense that you were currently lacking in something. Instead, you knew this physical experience would be an environment that would provide a balance of contrast from which you would personally make increasingly improved choices that would add to your own expansion, as well as to the collective expansion of all that is. You knew that this world of contrast would induce in you the expansion that literally puts the eternalness into eternity. And your appreciation for the contrasting environment on planet Earth was enormous, for you understood that contrast is the basis of expansion, and that the expansion would be joyous. And here you are." End quote. So, wanted to get that across. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.